speaking of great experiences and great people, we've got a fabulous panel here for you today. I've got Michelle Deaker here, Dr. Michelle Deaker, who I've known for quite some time, one of Australia's leading venture capitalists, managing partner of OneVentures. You've got the incredible Lisa Claes, who you've just heard from. You've got Danielle Lewis, who has developed this amazing platform, which she's going to tell you all about, which I hadn't heard of till I came across last week, and I want to use it tomorrow. It's just amazing. And Stella Bella, who is really going to do something that is going to change the world around diversity and entrepreneurship. And she's going to talk about her international experience and what she's bringing back to Australia here today. So I'm going to start off, first of all, with Michelle and ask all of you to introduce yourself. Tell us about what you're doing and who you are.
Thanks, Liz. Switch this on. Michelle Deaker, no? Can't hear that. Is that better?
Yep.
Michelle Deaker, as Liz mentioned, I'm managing partner now of VC firm OneVentures, but I started life as a science graduate. I double majored in physics and chemistry. Then I went on to found a number of companies, one in the education space, and then after that a technology company, which was probably one of Australia's first fintech companies. We put all the technology behind the Australian prepaid cards and electronic voucher market, and then I sold that to a UK publicly listed company who I went and worked for a while, and then I stepped out as an angel investor and I was mentoring a lot of startups, and one of my mentors said to me, "Hey Michelle, you should think about venture capital." And I thought that was a pretty good idea, and here I am 10 years later, and we now have 400 million under management, and we're about to raise our 5th fund. So that's my journey.
Wow, thank you. Wonderful. Lisa.
Thanks. You've heard a bit about me, so I'll give you a very short version. So I began life as a barrister. I didn't know what impossible meant, and which is a sole practitioner role. Of course, this was all before digital, so paper was my best friend. I often say I'd be a judge by now if I'd stayed at the bar. And then moved into large corporates as general counsel. Ran life business, wealth management business, bank, ING, and then came into CoreLogic for the reasons I said at the end. In terms of diversity, I say as a female CEO, I actually don't look at, I don't have a lens. I just sort of definitely meritocracy is the way I operate. But as it happens, I have an executive team that's probably 60% female, and the females are in the key artery roles of CFO, Chief Data Sciences, head of product. And it's and a lot of people who collect all that data and analyse it are from all over the world, of all ages and both sexes. So and I can say it just has happened quite naturally. So yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, Danielle.
Thank you. So a little bit about me. So I started out life as an excellent box ticker, did very well in school, very well in uni, saving to go to house, rising corporate career. And then I had a bit of a life-changing moment and decided to start Scrunch, which is my startup. And that's when the roller coaster ride really started. And we've done a number of things. So we've been in business for the last 10 years, but really the first 5 years was the typical startup story: pivot, until we started actually listening to our customers and figuring out what they would pay us money for. And so today we are an influencer marketing platform that caters to 20 million influencers globally. And we really believe that it's not about the influencer. It's actually about the data and analytics behind that influencer and what followers you're actually going to reach. So we prioritise that as a data-led strategy. We also have a campaign management workflow as well. So if anyone's ever done influencer marketing, you know it can be quite the pain in the bum. There's lots of different steps, lots of different stakeholders. So we make that super easy in a piece of software for our brands.
Thanks, Danielle. That's great. And Stella.
Hi, so I'm Stella. I was made in Thailand, and then at 5 I got imported to Australia. So I graduated as a medical radiation science, so in working in hospital, and then at 27 I had everything that was considered success. So like I had a good job, I was engaged to a doctor and all that, and then I had a quarter life crisis, and I discovered a book called Eat, Pray, Love. And that was the catalyst of packing my life of 22 years in Australia and buying a one-way ticket to Thailand where I wanted to be a yoga teacher. And then I lost my voice, and that as a yoga teacher, that's your biggest asset is your voice, and I lost it. So I went on the journey of Thai traditional medicine and founded a natural skincare and herbal supplement factory that got acquired in 5 years, and then so now I'm with SoGal. So the reason why I joined SoGal was because being young, I founded the company at 27, and being I call myself a banana, so my hardware is Asian but my software is really Australian. So being young and being Thai, it was really hard to at the time to navigate through that whole entrepreneurial journey. So, and SoGal, the vision and the mission of the company is to help the underrepresented founders and women get capital and see their vision and dreams come to life. Yep.
Fantastic. Really interesting stories and all completely different. And so on that basis, I'd really like to ask all of you, can you share with us what's been one of the most significant personal challenges, personal or professional challenges if you prefer, that you've had to get through to get you where you are today?
Look, I was going to say that, as an entrepreneur, I think starting is a really difficult place. But when I was thinking about the personal challenge that led me to where I am today, I actually think that it was actually when I sold my business and I had to do a year's handover to the UK company. I was contracted for at least a year, but you can imagine that I'd been 8 years building this company, got it to a point where it had got to very good revenues, we'd been acquired, I was working for a new entity, only to find that there was a complete cultural mismatch between my business, which was flat management structure, really innovative, fast-growing, fast-moving business, and moving into a stodgy UK, upwards reporting, top-down management company that really didn't understand innovation, and realising in the course of that year that unlike what I thought when I sold the business to this company, that I would end up in their senior management and working around the world in their business, that I was actually going to have to leave and start a new life for myself. And that was a really challenging point because it also meant moving away and leaving my baby that I'd built for 8 years and starting a new life and a new career. And that was really challenging. And when I stepped out of that business at the end of my year of handover period, which I was obliged to do because 10% of the capital of the sale was tied up in that year, making sure I got all that money back to my investors, then I was faced with actually not knowing what on earth I was going to do. But it's actually at that moment you realise that the world opens up a canvas of opportunity. And if you start looking around, the new opportunities arise. And as I mentioned, I started working in the startup community, I started mentoring, I started investing, and one of my mentors said, Michelle, you should think about VC. And I turned around and I looked around the VCs in the market and I didn't find a good fit. In particular, not many women. So I decided to start up my own firm and did that and set up OneVentures. And I think we're the first female-led firm in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah, well done.
Amazing.
Lisa?
I think challenge is probably more risk, and it's a generic comment because I've had a lot of professionally scary moments in my life. Got a good hairdresser, but I think if you look at my career, and it's quite diverse, barrister leading a massive data analytic business, there's no textbook route to doing that. And I think when I was a lawyer, you're trained to be very risk adverse, you're trained to be very detailed. Earlier in my career, when I was considering making a move into the business side of organisations, all I could see was reasons why not to do it, because unless I know everything, or I'm an actuary, I've run a P&L before. But what I've learned is that there's a generic set of skills, and I think that this transcends whether you're an entrepreneur, a VC capitalist, or a CEO of a large corporate, that there's a generic set of skills that once you've got those, you can do anything. So it's that getting that confidence. I think that was probably a career epiphany I had several years ago now, but I'll be approached for roles, or I'm interested in things and I'll go, I could do that. And I don't say that arrogantly. It's because I know, experience, a lot of the scars that I have put me in that position. So confidence.
That's a great insight. Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you. I guess for me, so I would agree that there's many challenges have come up along the years, but I guess for me it was really stepping out of my comfort zone. So I worked 10 years in corporate, so I was in sales for Telstra, and if anyone knows Telstra, land of opportunity. Every year there's a pay rise, every year there's a new role to step into. You're usually working with a pretty amazing team of people as well, and for me, I come from a background where both parents worked 30 years in the same job. We're a steak and through veg family every night. So the idea that you could actually create your own business was completely foreign to me. It was something that to actually move into that and trust myself and find that confidence as well, that I could actually do it and be that leader. That was probably the biggest challenge for me. And to be honest, I don't think it's ended. Every day I was saying earlier to Michelle, every year we've grown bigger and had more success, reached more milestones, but that kind of just makes the challenges bigger. But I think that's what's most exciting as well, that personal development that happens as a result of pushing outside of your comfort zone.
Great.
Thank you. And I'm the same. So the bigger challenge was leaving the perfect life and just taking a risk of not knowing any benefit. I had no idea I even wanted to get into entrepreneurship or start a business. It was kind of the challenge was to break down the, oh my God. And I had that when I lost my voice and was like, shit, it can't work. And what am I doing? But I'm a bit of a hippie, so it's just as Elizabeth Gilbert said, just trust the universe. And but over the years, it's getting the confidence and the skills you learn. And when I after 10 months of I bankrupt, and so that whole the training I had in uni and working in the hospital of the emergency, and just to calm down, the world's not going to end. And just developing a resilience, and when things come up, because lots of things come up that you don't know that that's even possible to come up in your life. So that's the challenge I had. Yeah.
Thank you. Common theme there, risk-taking, confidence, believing in yourself. Michelle, as someone who's a veteran, if I can call you that, in the industry now, you've seen a lot of changes over the last 20 years. What's different about going in and starting as a founder and being a woman now compared to earlier on? Is it better? Is it worse?
Look, I would have to say I think it's a lot better, and I think it's improving all the time. There are even female venture capitalists that you can approach, and I can tell you when I was a young female entrepreneur, there were no female venture capitalists. In fact, every financing meeting I walked into was a room full of men. And once I was actually mistaken as the person there to take the notes. So that meeting went really, really badly. Nowadays there's organisations such as SoGal, there's Head Over Heels, there's She Starts, there's Springboard. All these organisations are there to help provide networks for female entrepreneurs, to provide business planning support and help. There's mentor programs as well, and even the organisations such as StartMate and the other accelerator hubs, of which there's many, Slingshot, etc., are all out there helping and supporting entrepreneurs broadly, but also encouraging female entrepreneurship. And so I think it's been a really major market shift, and I think women are starting to get more capital. I think it's still difficult. I remember it was very hard in my day, but I think it's improving now, and venture capitalists are just looking for great businesses now. And I don't think they're really distinguishing, and hopefully not on a diversity level. And we're very, very conscious now about making sure that we're not injecting any bias into our decision making. And I think OneVentures has supported the most female entrepreneurs, which I'm very proud of as well.
Yay. I am too. That's fantastic news. Thank you. Now, Lisa, you gave an amazing presentation before about data, the value of it, but also the risks. So obviously it's just going to keep on getting and growing bigger and bigger. And I'm interested in your observations about how many women are there in the industry. I know that you're personally a big fan of having women, as you've identified. But, you know, should women be getting into this industry, and how? And do you think having more women in there is actually going to perhaps influence some of the things that you were talking about before?
Yeah, well, you know, I would frame the answer with customer. I mean, the female makes 80% of purchasing decisions in fast-moving consumer goods, 67% in financial decisions. They're not, if they're not at the table, they're certainly behind the table pushing. So, you know, it's crazy that organisations, big, small or medium, aren't thinking of the female disposition or appetite. And one of the ways to, you know, for businesses to connect through businesses, B2B to C or B to C, is to, you know, clearly mimic their customer base. Which brings me to, and how do you get better at targeting and knowing what customer preferences is? Through data and analytics, and how you, you know, craft solutions as a result. I think just to sort of bust a bit of a myth, a lot of people think about STEM and data and data science as, oh, I have to have a PhD in mathematics, or I had to have done computer science or actuarial studies. Yes, we do have some of those, but the majority of people that work in data and analytics actually don't have those qualifications. We have people with arts degrees. I mean, you do have to have a level of numeracy, but I always say that every great CEO, as long as you're good at decimals and fractions at primary school level, you should be all right. And then you've got to know how to read balance sheets and P&L. I don't want to, but that's the truth. And just make sure you surround yourself with really, really great people. So. Don't be afraid of STEM, because a lot of the skills, again, provided you've got that base level of numeracy, can be, you can learn them very, very quickly. So as a result of that, we employ a broad church of people who don't have the expected qualifications, who get in and learn on the job and often become better and more effective than those that do have the qualifications.
That's a great message too. So basically, to anyone who has children in the audience, it doesn't matter what they're studying, they can basically get into this area because it's a really big opportunity for them, and definitely a growth sector right across the world by the sounds of it. Speaking of data, so Danielle, Instagram and what you're doing. I've got to claim I'm not an Instagram expert. Usually the closest.
Me either, don't worry.
Right. I mean, I've, tried to stalk my sons and daughters' accounts and, learn that way. It's about, as far as I've got so far. But I've got fantastic staff like Jara on my team who does Instagram. I'm really interested in, just from the already the time that you've been working on the Scrunch product, which just sounds incredible. Give us an insight of what you're finding, again, in a gender context, the difference between men and women influencers. What are you seeing there, and what sort of insights can you provide us about influencers, and maybe if you can call it, who are the better influencers there?
Definitely, I can reveal all the secrets. Well, it's really interesting. So in influencer marketing, females definitely make up the majority of influencers, and I would hazard a guess with no scientific proof that, you know, it goes back to that stat that 70 to 80% of females drive purchase decisions. Influencer marketing, the outcome is we're trying to increase brand sales. So it kind of makes sense that a lot of female people get involved in becoming an influencer. I think it's also an amazing opportunity for flexible work arrangements as well. So you can really start a business from your own home as becoming an influencer. Yes, there are still male influencers, but they are a smaller section of the pie. So we do see, and look, I mean, when it comes to who is the better influencer, we definitely see, you know, a lot of great things on both sides. Really what it comes down to being a good influencer is more your work ethic and attitude and how you actually collaborate with brands, more so than whether you drive actual sales. So that's probably an interesting thought as well.
Interesting. Okay. So, Stella, we were talking before about, and you, in fact, introduced yourself to the audience as made in Thailand, and, you know, you've grown up here in Australia and you've gone back and forth. And also, I'm really interested about how you find the differences having lived over in Southeast Asia and then coming back to Australia, particularly around the startup community, the sort of support that Michelle was talking about before for women. How, is that as strong over in Asia, or is it different? Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah. I realise I'm not really title. I just being in Asia, it's really, I find in Australia, it's really supportive. It's a really nurturing, very supportive environment, whereas and we're quite optimistic in Australia. It's like the land of opportunity, but in Asia, it's like every bit, like it's big sharks and big, and particularly I think Australians are very, very nice and very giving generally, and very honest. So in Asia, to navigate and just to be like, wow, you can do that. Well, for me, that's not what I would do. So I was perceived as being quite naive. Like, after my business got acquired, I invested in medical marijuana because Thailand, at the time, they were still legalizing that, and losing all my money into that because I didn't. I just trusted and thought I did my due diligence. So kind of, it's a completely different kind of ecosystem, but people are more hungry, I suppose, because the economy is really quite uncertain and unstable all the time, whereas in Australia it's pretty smooth, pretty everything's stable, you know your rights, but there you think you might be signing something that's legit and it turns out it was a fake document or so.
Right. Thank you. Great. So I'm also interested because you've all talked about your different backgrounds. So we've got Michelle, who's a PhD in chemistry and physics from memory. Is that right? Lisa, who's a barrister, or was a barrister, lawyer. Danielle, fashion designer.
Yes.
And I think Stella, nutritionist, wellness, that sort of background. So this is a really interesting group because you all come at it from completely different backgrounds. And I guess what I'm interested in is, given you've all been enormously successful already, what sort of focus does having that background give you in terms of going forward? Like being a scientist, let's start with you, Michelle. Being a scientist, what does it mean? How does it influence the way that, you know, you've done things as you've gone through life?
Look, I guess, you know, I learnt analytical skills at a very young age and learnt to apply that to whatever I was doing. So, you know, I think the science and technology background also gives you project management and, you know, just general skills around, you know, problem solving. So, you know, there was no problem too small that I probably thought I couldn't solve at some stage of my life. And that probably meant that I was possibly more willing to have a go at things. And I'd grown up in a very entrepreneurial family as well, so I think that influenced my trajectory. So obviously having a strong science background meant I wasn't scared of technology and moving into technology fields and working and building a number of technology companies, and we're very hands-on as investors, and we've got things from healthcare right through to, you know, B2B SaaS companies, AI businesses. So I think that background's been great for me.
Fantastic, thank you. So, Lisa.
Yeah, don't, strange as it might seem, but the study of law and practicing at the bar, what it teaches you, I think you put it into two categories, qualitative and quantitative. So quantitatively, it teaches you critical thinking. It teaches you to be able to consume vast amounts of information and synthesise that information for relevance and value, which I think has incredible parallels to what I do today. On the qualitative side, it teaches you communication, advocacy, stakeholder management, looking at things from different points of view. So when you're acting for someone, you've got to know the opponent's argument better than your own. You've got to see their perspective so that you can influence to your customer's outcome or client's outcome. So I think those traits, wherever you learn them, I think are, harking back to what I referred to earlier, they're universal traits that really stand you in good stead whatever business context that you're in.
Okay, thank you. Danielle.
Well, I don't want to shock anybody, but I don't think fashion had a huge relevance on the rest of my career. So for me, it was probably the 10 years I did in sales. So one thing I always reflect back on that time and think that it gave me every skill that I needed to run my business today. I very much take on the role of, anything that requires actually talking to somebody or presenting or those types of things is definitely something that I absolutely love doing. But it's something that I will always say, when anyone asks me for startup advice, I'm always, it's sales. You've got to be able to sell yourself, your idea, your business. It always comes back to how well you can communicate the value and of what you're doing, really. So for me, it was really, if anyone ever offers you any sales experience, even if you hate it, it teaches you some very valuable lessons.
Great advice. Thank you. Okay, Stella.
I think being a radiographer just teaches you the empathy, the care, and I think that really translates to business. And because in the hospital there's no agenda, you have your oath to treating the patient with the best care. So I think that has helped me see things more holistically and putting the clients or the other stakeholder and their needs and wanting to help them from a genuine space. So that, yeah.
Great, okay. I might just take this opportunity because I think we're close to time. I've still got another question, but yes, great. So we've got, excellent, 10. So can we open it up to the audience to ask any questions right now?
Steal somebody's microphone from there. Thanks, Stella. Cheers. Right there.
Hi, my name is Kate. I work for Lendlease in innovation. I'm just interested to know, and feel free for anybody to answer this so you can pick. I'm interested to know what you would tell yourselves when you started the journey that you wish you had known. What's the one thing that you wish you had known then that you know now?
Well, since I have the mic in my hand, I'll give you my 2 cents worth. Look, there's one half of me that very much is thankful that I didn't know what I was in for. I think if I did know, I may not have had the courage to get started. But for me, the biggest thing is financial understanding. So, making sure that, you can be the creative, you can be the salesperson, you can be any of that, but actually having a core grasp of your business was the most important thing for me to upskill on. 2 cents?
Yeah, look, I would say cash flow. As starting out as a young entrepreneur, I wish I'd had better financial literacy, but really understood cash flow. And this is really important even for our investee companies. But the other point that I'll make is actually hiring. Just as an entrepreneur, hire the best people you can find. Always hire people better than yourself. Because at the end of the day, if your business is to grow, you've got to be able to delegate. So the startups that I find fail or don't achieve their potential are where the entrepreneur or that entrepreneurial CEO thinks that he can do the entire business and be every single position in his leadership team, and he doesn't want to hire anyone into his leadership team who may be smarter than him. So hiring really well and getting the right people into your business, I think, is really important.
Yep, here. The power of the pyramid is the holy grail of success, and surrounding yourselves with really the best you can afford. For me, it's about, I tell people, if I'm giving career advice, is that you should feel uncomfortable every week, or you should be periodically feeling uncomfortable or stretched, or not overstressed, but stretched. And I think, to your question, I probably, didn't jump off the cliff early enough in my career. I was raising children and doing all. Of course, I've got some immaculate excuses, but that is, just jump off that cliff. You grow in your career and in your business, and as a person when you feel. It comes off the back of discomfort, without any doubt.
Scary for most people.
I think it's more, like everyone had said, I wish I didn't know what that not knowing is, then I achieved that. It's going to be like, I thought if I had my own business, I'll have more time and more money, but that's not the case. You have less time and less money and no life, no. And as Lisa had mentioned, and Lisa, sorry, I lost my thought process now. So what was the question again?
Just
What's the one thing?
Yeah, which I didn't know, is this cold. And it's like.
Never mind.
Sorry.
I think we've got a good enough sense from all of you. Are there any other questions at the moment? Yep.
Thanks, Kate. Thank you.
No? Okay. So I'm really interested in just exploring that a bit more. So for young women starting out now, you've basically said take risk, jump off cliffs. What sort of safety net do you think what sort of safety net do you think women actually need in terms of their own personal networks? How valuable is that? Because from talking to all of you, you're all very well connected. You've all got your networks of friends. In fact, I was talking to Jessica Rufus from Collabosaurus last night, and she was saying, "Oh, Danielle, she's great." And obviously, you all have networks that support each other. And when things are going tough, it's probably really important that you have these people to reach out to. Maybe just tell me a little bit about how you form these networks, how you actually then use them when things are going wrong or right.
So I think for me the biggest thing was that I figured out that I actually didn't have that. So when I made the leap into starting my own business, a lot of myself and my partner's friends, so I initially went into business with my partner, and we found that people thought we were crazy. So people didn't get it. They were all doctors and lawyers and thought we were absolutely nuts for having this dream and for wanting to spend every waking hour working on this business. So it had to be really intentional for me. So I have this thing that I call my life council. And basically it was a design to have other successful, positive female and male mentors around me in a lot of different areas in my life that I knew I was going to need to upskill in to be successful. So my thoughts are, you don't have to stick with the people that you've stuck with if they're not bringing you good energy, if they're not giving you positivity and on the path that you're on. It's okay to move on from those people, but I would be very intentional about the people that I surround myself with. Great.
Okay. Lisa?
I think I start with my family in terms of having that, you can jump off cliffs when you've got a parachute. I've always had a level of consistency in some part of my life. I think that's important, and security in some form, not always financial security. So, informally, I'm blessed to have a really smart partner. Even my children now, who are young adults, are incredibly gifted in probably non-traditional ways, and a mother who remains a very strong influencer in my life. So, coming from that cocoon of, good counsel is good. But, of course, that we're all on different journeys. But, I've made a deliberate effort to cultivate a good network of people who have got skills I do not have, who've got experiences I do not have. I've often felt I'm almost a bit predatory, and that I will, if I see someone at a talk or the way they do something, and I will reach out and form a connection with them and get to know them. I mean, fundamentally, I'm just fascinated and curious about people and where they got to, where they are. And I find people are so receptive to making connection generally. I've never had anyone go, get away, or what do you want? And I make, of course, doubly effort to give back, so that it's a very symbiotic type of relationship. And that things change, networks assemble and collapse as you move through your various paths in life. But it's really nice. You sort of build up this store of influence that you can tap into, years apart. So it's so that's probably another, just sort of the bookend to that other question, is that I've only realised the power of that probably in the last 15 years, whether, I think you should start, when you're in high school, pretty much, to do that, this building up this network of not just friends but influences, and the more diverse that network and in terms of experience, the better.
Interesting. Okay, so Michelle, did you want to say anything on that? Or
I think it's
covered,
well
right?
answered.
So look, maybe just we were just about out of time. Perhaps in terms of. Oh, sorry. Yes, go ahead. Sorry. No, go ahead. We've still got a minute and a half.
It was more of a question about if you're early stage founder, more if you are thinking about, you were speaking about financial literacy, and where do you start, where do you go? There's so much things on internet, if you have any recommendation.
Good question.
Well, I'll just say, just very quickly, and it's not, I'm not a founder, but I went from being general counsel to pretty much running a bank, and which is scary, but it wasn't scary, because what I did is I would sit down internally and externally with the treasurer, the CFO, and I'd go in and I'd watch the screens when they were managing the liabilities and just ask a whole lot of dumb questions. So if I were in your shoes, don't go to the internet. I don't learn that way. I just reach out, find someone and go, can I just shadow you for a day and watch what you do and ask questions? That's how Paul Keating learnt to do everything he did.
To run the country?
Run the country. Doesn't have a degree. He just found the smartest, most accessible people and just went and spent an hour with them every week. Buy them a coffee, buy them a sandwich, and just get a download of that.
Wow. You're going to do that?
Yeah. Look, there are short courses as well, and even the AICD, the Australian Institute of Company Directors, runs courses on just very basic, P&L, being able to read a P&L, understand accounts, know what you're looking at when you're looking at your own accounts. In terms of cash flow management, what you're looking at is just trying to forecast when you're getting receipts of income against how much you're spending, and making sure you don't spend more than you're getting in money coming in. And believe me, a lot of people just don't understand that equation, and they can get very behind in arrears in their business purely because they're just not managing what's coming in and what is going out. And in my early days as an entrepreneur, I used to sign off every single payment and knew exactly how much money was going in and out of the business. And that's the only way you can cash flow manage a business forward, and also understand what your financing requirements might be as well as you grow your business. So, I raised $6.5 million into my previous business before we exited, and there was a lot of returns that had to go back to shareholders. Understanding the value of that capital, how you're putting that capital to work, how you're delivering a return on investment for the investors with that capital that you're using. This isn't just about money coming in that you can spend. This is about taking that dollar and turning it into $3.
There you go. So you've heard it now from one of the best VCs in Australia. Give them all a great hand. Thank you.